The sky over the Masai Mara was heavy, thick with dark clouds that hinted at the arrival of the rainy season. The once golden grasses now bent under the weight of the downpour, shaking in the wind like fragile dancers. In this bleak and unforgiving landscape, an old lion moved slowly, his steps labored. Abandoned by his pride months ago, he had become a shadow of the powerful hunter he once was. His fur, once thick and regal, was now matted and soaked, weighed down by the relentless rain. His left hind leg, still injured from a wound he had sustained months earlier, caused him to limp with each tired step. The lion's eyes, once sharp and piercing, had dulled with age and weariness. He watched from a distance as herds of Thompson's gazelles darted across the plains, their swift movements a painful reminder of what he could no longer do. His stomach growled, but he knew he could no longer chase after them. His body had grown weak, too frail to keep up with the agile prey. His pride had long since abandoned him, deeming him unfit for the hunt. And now he was left alone to survive as best he could. For the past several days, the lion had been wandering the plains in search of food. He wasn't fast enough to catch live prey anymore, so he had resorted to scavenging. He would circle the areas where hyenas or leopards had fed, hoping for any scraps left behind. But even this proved difficult. The rains had come earlier this year, turning the ground into a slippery mess of mud and water. The lion's paws sank deeper into the earth with every step, slowing his progress. The heavy rain made it harder to track the scent of food, and his body was growing weaker by the day. He had not eaten properly for days, and his ribs were becoming more and more visible beneath his thin, ragged fur. Exhaustion weighed heavily on him. His steps were slow and deliberate, and his body trembled from both hunger and the cold. For 5 long days, he had trudged through the rain, hoping for a break, hoping for something, anything that would satisfy his hunger. But nothing came. Each day was a battle. His muscles ached, and his bones felt like they might snap under the strain. That afternoon, as the rain continued to pour, the lion found himself in the middle of an open field. His eyes, searching desperately for anything that could help him, fell upon a large puddle of thick, sticky mud. At first, he didn't think much of it. It was just another obstacle, another patch of mud he'd have to navigate. But as he stepped forward, his paws sank deeper than he expected. The mud clung to him, weighing him down, and with each step, he sank further. At first, it only reached his knees, but the rain didn't stop. The puddle grew larger, the mud more viscous. With each attempt to move forward, the lion found himself sinking deeper. His claws scraped against the slick surface of the mud, but it was no use. Panic began to set in as he realized the mud was pulling him in, dragging him down. He struggled, trying to claw his way free, but the more he moved, the deeper he sank. Time passed slowly. The lion's breath grew ragged, his body trembling from both the cold and the effort of fighting the thick, sticky mud. His strength was fading. He had fought against the elements for so long, but now his body was giving out. His muscles burned with exhaustion, and his heart pounded in his chest. The lion let out a weak growl, but the sound was lost in the sound of the rain. The mud was up to his belly now. His limbs felt heavy, and the cold seeped into his bones. Despair washed over him. His body felt numb, and his mind grew foggy. The lion knew he had no strength left. The struggle had gone on long enough. His eyes closed, the rain continuing to beat down on him, and he finally surrendered to the overwhelming fatigue. The cold, muddy earth seemed to swallow him whole, and he drifted into a deep, exhausted sleep. Across the vast expanse of the Masai Mara, Kamau, a dedicated conservationist, was driving his patrol vehicle through the downpour. A man in his 30s, Kamau had spent the past decade working in the reserve, becoming intimately familiar with every corner of the land. The rain was relentless, but Kamau didn't mind. His mission today was clear: check the areas most prone to flooding and ensure there were no landslides or potential dangers for wildlife. He drove with determination, his eyes scanning the landscape through the windshield as the storm raged on. As he navigated the slippery roads, his gaze was drawn to a strange shape in the distance. It was a lion. Kamau slowed the vehicle, squinting through the rain, and as he got closer, he saw that the lion was lying motionless on the ground. His heart skipped a beat. At first, he thought the lion was dead. The poor creature had probably succumbed to the hunger, the rain, or the harsh conditions of the Mara. But something in the lion's posture told Kamau that there was still hope. He stopped the vehicle and quickly threw on his raincoat, stepping out into the storm. The wind howled around him and the rain beat against his face, but Kamau didn't hesitate. As he approached the lion, he could see that the animal was breathing, just barely. The fur on the lion's body was soaked, and the thick mud had caked over much of his body. Kamau knelt down beside the lion, noticing the deep exhaustion in its eyes. The old lion was weak, almost on the brink of death. Kamau's mind raced. He knew the dangers of approaching such a powerful predator, even in this state. But he also knew he couldn't just leave the lion to die in the mud. There was still a chance, a slim one, but a chance nonetheless. Kamau didn't have time to wait for backup. His colleagues were 4 hours away by car, and the lion wouldn't last that long. Kamau made a quick decision. He would attempt to rescue the lion alone. He sprinted back to his vehicle, grabbing the rope from his rescue kit. Time was crucial. Kamau knew he couldn't afford to waste a moment. The rain was still pouring down, and the mud around the lion was becoming even thicker, making the rescue more difficult. He returned to the lion's side, where it lay motionless but still alive, its heavy eyes following his every movement. Kamau carefully approached the lion, being mindful of its claws and teeth. The lion's eyes twitched slightly as Kamau reached down to secure the rope around its body, avoiding its head and paws. The task was more challenging than Kamau had expected. The mud was slippery and treacherous, making it difficult to keep his footing. His boots sank into the muck with every step, but he refused to give up. After several tense minutes, the rope was finally secured. Kamau stepped back and took a deep breath. Now came the hardest part. The lion was large and heavy, and the mud had a firm grip on its body. Kamau planted his feet firmly on the ground and began to pull. The lion let out a weak growl as Kamau strained with all his strength, using the rope to slowly inch the animal toward solid ground. The minutes felt like hours as the lion's massive body moved inch by inch, the mud resisting every pull. Kamau's arms burned with effort, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. As the lion's body finally began to inch free from the mud, Kamau's heart raced with anticipation. The rain continued to fall, but he hardly noticed it now. The roar of the rain and the struggle between man and animal seemed to fade into the background. Kamau pulled harder, and finally, with one last effort, the lion's body emerged from the thick mud. Kamau collapsed to his knees, gasping for air, exhausted but relieved. The lion lay flat on the ground, its breathing shallow but steady. Kamau didn't move immediately. He observed the lion closely, making sure it was safe, but he also knew that the lion was still in danger. The old lion tried to lift its head, its gaze meeting Kamau's, a glimmer of understanding shining through its wearied eyes. Kamau stepped back, slowly untying the rope. and then backed away, giving the lion space. He watched as the lion, trembling, struggled to rise. It was clear that the animal was still weak, its limbs shaky from the ordeal. Kamau hesitated for a moment, then remembered the spare meat he kept in his car for such emergencies. He quickly retrieved a piece of meat from the vehicle and threw it toward the lion. The fishy smell of the meat seemed to reach the lion's nose, and its eyes flickered with recognition. With great effort, the lion crawled toward the meat, slowly taking a bite, its body trembling with hunger. Kamau stood at a safe distance, watching as the lion devoured the food, its body gradually gaining strength with each bite. He couldn't help but feel a deep sense of relief and compassion for the old creature. The rain continued to fall, but for the first time in days, Kamau felt a sense of warmth spread through him. The lion raised its head once more, its eyes meeting Kamau's with a silent thank you. Slowly, the lion stood, its steps still unsteady, but a little stronger. With one last look at Kamau, the lion turned and, despite the heaviness of the rain on its back, walked away. Kamau watched as the old lion disappeared into the field, its figure growing smaller in the downpour. He smiled quietly to himself, knowing that the lion had been given a second chance, thanks to his courage and the kindness of a man who refused to let nature take its harsh course. Kamau climbed back into his vehicle, started the engine, and continued on his patrol. The rain continued to fall, but he felt a warmth in his heart as he looked back at the lion's silhouette disappearing into the wild. There, in the midst of the storm, was a story of survival, compassion, and the powerful bond between man and animal.